Lake, Dr. Katz, for bringing here. Okay. So, I think it's the other one, right? I don't want to repeat neither. Where is that one? What was the other one?
Just close it.
Yeah. That's good. Okay, so thank you very much, Nate. So what we did, I like when data talks. I'm going to tell you a story, but basically what I'm going to do is to mention the study that we did, the data we collected, and maybe most important, to tell you the results. Because what I will try to explain today is one of the main variables that I believe that is impacting and explaining why people hate and love technology. And this is important. It's not only at an individual level, also in a corporate level. I believe that companies today, they have like digital schizophrenia or digital bipolarity. I don't know which is the best word, but for example, they know that they have to use technology, they love technology, but inside companies, they don't allow workers to use them, right? I don't know how it's here, but in Chile at least, most of the companies don't allow workers to have access, for example, to social media or to YouTube, because people is not productive. So they have this schizophrenia or bipolarity that they love, but they hate. We also have that. So what is the point here? We collected data. It's very interesting what the new method that we're using, LinkedIn, maybe is the best way to make a sample of people. We have a huge database on LinkedIn. LinkedIn gives you, if you download the data, you have the position, the employee, so you can make a very good, in a professional area, a very good sample. So we did it with 25,000, and then we have a sample of 2,600 or something like that, professionals in Chile. So then we did an experiment. And as I'm going to show you, we frame it. We wanted to study and learn the perceptions that Chilean people have to facial recognition. So we did an experiment in order to prove the most important variable that I'm going to tell you in a few seconds what one is. And then we contrast their willingness to see through facial recognition devices what other people were doing, and we contrasted with what they would like, whether they would like others to see what they were doing. And then we put it all of that in a structural equation modeling in order to understand which are the most important variables to understand this phenomenon. These are the 4 things that we did. So let's look at the experiment, the first one. As I mentioned to you before, and you have heard about China, they're using in China like all these systems to criminals for records so they can identify people, and people don't like that. Why do they don't like? Because they lost control. And that's the most important variable that we're going to study. People don't like when they don't are in control of the things. In family issues, is maybe one of the main problems in families where parents, for example, they want to control what the kids are doing. They want to study something, and it's not healthy. The healthy relationships are when people gives control to others, right? So this is the same thing. People don't like to lose the control. So we frame it Today, facial recognition systems can identify individuals and learn based on their expression, for example, their state of mind, motivations, and degree of satisfaction with the activities they are doing. And after that, we put neutral, positive, and negative scenarios. So what did we get? When we then asked whether they would prefer to use a facial recognition system instead of IDs, for example, to 14 different items to get access, for example, to the bank account, social media account, to the technological devices, to a workplace home, we found that there were not difference between the positive and neutral scenario. But there was difference with the negative one. Why? Because people don't like to use a control. You can see here, the neutral positive condition, no difference. People don't care. But when they feel that their control is threatened by an external thing, like they're going to lose the control, they immediately, like they don't like so much. So this is the first thing. The other question that we found a very important difference was with the security. We asked them how much secure they feel with each one of the following institutions, whether they would use facial recognition to store some of that information. And again, people in the negative condition showed like a lower level of security. They feel less secure, whether these different organizations, workplace, government, hospitals, they will take care of their information through a facial recognition system. So, why this is important? First conclusion, people is sensible. When they perceive that their control is threatened. The idea of control is relevant. Let me introduce you an idea first. This guy is called Schopenhauer. He lived a few, maybe 100 and a little bit more years ago. And he developed a dilemma that is beautiful, that was after used, as I'm going to explain it, by Freud. The porcupine dilemma. What's the porcupine dilemma? He said the following. He found that porcupines, in cold days, they try to get together. Are you familiar with this dilemma? It's a very interesting one. They try to get together in order to get warm from other people, the porcupines. So there is a dilemma. Why? Because they have spines and they hurt others. So if they are together, in order to get the warmth of others, they start to suffer. So they have to go back. Freud took that idea in the psychological realm space area. And he said, look, when we try to get together, our defense go lower. We become, in intimacy situation, vulnerable. We don't like that because we lost control. We like to be in control of the situations. So, it's a very interesting idea to explain relationships. Freud used that. So people don't like to be so close to others because they lose control. They are vulnerable. When people are together, like close to each other, the other part knows all our problems, faults, and we don't like that. So what's the other thing? When people is really close to others, they can be hurt, and we don't like to be hurt. So how did we study this phenomenon? We did the following question, and this is the new thing, I believe, that we found. We asked them, as you remember, maybe that I mentioned you, that we asked how much would they like to know through a facial recognition device what the other people is doing. And then we asked them how much would they like having a facial recognition technology that displays the following about you to others.
And this is the difference. Personal details, for example, all the information that you can get from databases, from social media, mood detection, stress detection, light detection. So people like technology when they are in control of the situations, when they can get information from others. But when we ask it whether they would like that other people would know about them through this technology, get lower. You can see in red when they prefer that other people know them what they are doing through facial recognition. So we got this difference between what they want know about others and what they want that others know about them, and we started to compare with different variables that are important in technology adoption. For example, neuroticism. And neuroticism is one of the 5 big P's, right? The personality traits. So, what is important here? That it has 2 main components: sensitive and secure. These are what the neuroticism is. So that difference that you saw before was negatively correlated to the people who is really worried, tense, and suffer from nerves, for example, but it's positive to people who most of the time they can be calm in tense situations or can handle stress well, which shows exactly that this idea of the need for control. People love technology when they're in control of the situations. What do we know about this idea of locus of control or need for control from the ideas in literature? It's maybe you will know him. It's from Professor Axen from here, from MIT, I think. He knows very well that people, when they believe that technology is easy to use, when they feel comfortable using it, they are going to adopt it. But if they believe that they cannot do it, they will not. It's going to be impossible for them to try to adopt it. They're going to. There is a resonant process behavior that it's not going to allow him to try to use that. So this is one of the main aspects. In the practice, here it's a very interesting study that Professor Park here found that people, for example, who use smartphones, we know that smartphone allows us to be in control of the things. We can make we can manage our information, we can manage our time, we can do many things. So what he found here was the people who has a higher need for control, to control things, they also have a higher dependence on phones. It's a very interesting idea that the previous study have found these aspects. And he also, you will find this is the typical model that in the TAM studies, these studies that show with this model, accent model, about this resonant behavior and people who feels that they are in control. They have a higher self-efficacy level, for example. They are more adopters of technology than the others. This is a very important fact that you should know, we should know from the previous studies. So this support the concept that this variable, need for control, is very important to understand why people adopt technology and they have a positive attitude towards these new devices. But the difference with previous research and what we believe here, that is the main component, is that if I don't use, for example, the iPhone or the technology in my workplace, I'm not being challenged by the technology. Here, if I'm walking the street and someone recognizes me and immediately knows what I'm doing, what I like, all the things that we have heard during the morning, it's like you are walking naked on the street. Because people, you feel threatened by others. So this is very important, and this may explain why people don't like this concept and hate, for example, the facial recognition devices. How did we study the phenomenon? We did a very interesting study, as I mentioned it before, and with that I'm finishing. I'm going to show you the final model. And we, the dependent variables, what we were interested to understand was the likelihood of facial recognition adoption, and in 4 areas. We used home, social media account, workplace, etc. The security concerns, and this difference between using a facial recognition system to see others versus being seen by others through these devices. We use it as independent variables or possible explanations, all this idea of need for control, and all these other variables that are identified by previous studies in adoption of technology. And here we put them together in a model to see what happened. So what do we have here? We have, of course, many lines, many ideas. At the right, you have the intention to use facial recognition. In the middle, we have the security. People like these security concerns, whether they believe that the institutions are going to make a good use of the technology. And below, you have this difference between perception of personal and others' facial recognition use. And here, in my left, you have all these variables that may influence, have an impact on all these aspects. So what do we find here? For example, the idea of when you believe that technology is making bad to society, this cyber dystopianism, or whatever you want to call it, it's negative related at the same level that neurotism, for example. What else? Need for control, as we explained it before. It's not related, it's absolutely mediated by this different perception of personal and others' use of facial recognition. It has an impact on the final variable, but it's mediated. So it's very interesting to see this model, to understand 4 things. And also, it's very interesting, people who have been exposed to science fiction series, for example, Black Mirror, or others, it has an impact, or whether they would like to use technology or not. So what are the 4 things that we learned from the study? First, of course, we should isolate the phenomenon in order to study. Second, we should put more attention to these 5 Ps, the personalities. It's very important. I love people, I like people. That's the reason why I'm studying them. I really don't like so much technology, but I love how people react to it. So, it's important to learn more about people and less about technology in order to understand the phenomenon. And cyborg ideas, I didn't show it before, but these cyborg ideas, if you see in the left side, you will see a cyborg scale. How willing people are, for example, to put digital devices inside of them in order to improve, for example, their memory, their abilities to see reality in a more clear way. These variables are very relevant to predict whether people are more willing to accept this facial recognition system. And finally, this psychological aspect, for example, need for control, locus of control, might be even more relevant than the technical ones. So that's the reason why I'm saying that it's very important to understand people before to try to understand technology, and this is what we found. Thank you very much.